Greetings, bloggers, vloggers, followers, and potters. Dustin here from Dustin's Dynasty with another edition of this week's vlog. I want to come to you today on a Friday. It's a healthy Friday for what it can be. It's had a bit of bumps and little things, but we're trying to have a positive mindset and trying to start off the weekend. And as I was processing through this week, which it has been a roller coaster of changes and things unknown to me, I came to realize people don't understand, or I shouldn't say people, to the fact that people in general, as such as neurotypicals, or maybe some other neurodivergent people to a degree, do not understand the intensity of what an autistic person has to go through to endure things in normal life. And what I want to explain to that is the intensity of doing things that just may seem normal for you as a neurotypical person. Something like going to the grocery store, something like going to get some help for something that you may need, something like enduring a work day that may not be the same. And yet, because we are looked as if we have an invisible disability, we are often held to the same standard if we have an invisible disability as our neurotypical peers. So that can be kind of challenging in a way because, we're held to that higher standard and that we should breeze through life just as much as our neurotypical peers if they are unaware that we are neurodivergent or have a challenge such as autism or a mental health challenge. And that can be very challenging, when you have somebody who may even very well be living with you or has lived with you for a long time, it may not understand the intensity of the motions that you have to go through in a course of a day or a couple days or a week. And sometimes less is better, I've heard, but in an instance, sometimes you have to balance that less is better with keeping engaged. And what level of engagement do you compose of yourself so that you're not you're not overwhelmed, yet you're not too exhausted or too bored of the ruminating and challenging thoughts. And that's where I have a delicate balance right now of trying to find where I need to be in that element. You can have an activity, and that's nice, and I think sometimes activity is nice, but then you get overwhelmed from it, and by the time it takes for you to rebound, and then you're so disappointed because it's so late. Like, for example, right now it's 6:52 in the evening, and while I didn't have to do this vlog today, I had the thoughts in my mind because I for a while I had thought, well, what am I going to talk about this week? But then I did recall, this week talking, about, having the intensity and how intense things are, and why does it take us so long to get to that point, and why, and intensity just lies itself with just because of the autism. And I think we're hearing that more and more as autism is becoming more prevalent in the community, is that, especially for the autistic population, it's finding that, it's because of the autism, and we have to accept it and live it as part of life. It's just I know it's not something we enjoy doing, but sometimes it takes us time to unwind. So something as simple as a 5-hour work shift and adding on a 1 hour transport each way can definitely require a 3-hour relaxation, three and a half hour if you count food, and just the fact that that day may be overwhelming, such as today. And granted, it's about managing your time, but it's also trying to understand where is that delicate balance in the course of the day. Now I was starting to ruminate, and I could tell that I was starting to ruminate, so therefore I knew I had to do something creative. I started to do some of the daily tasks that I do, and even I've broken them up as time goes on to not intense them so much in one block of time. There was a lot of things I used to do in the morning. And for example, I would read all my newspapers in the morning. Well, now, because it comes in the mail, I just choose to read it in the evening, because why would you read it in the morning digitally and when it comes to your mailbox, and that could be something you could look forward to, and read in the evening when you have time to have some leisure. And that's what I did. I recovered by reading the newspaper or a magazine or anything that comes in the mail. And it was funny, this week, because we talked about, the mail was behind in the course of the day, and can't blame the mail carriers, because they're struggling, and and people complain because the price is up on stamps, but they're struggling, and I see it. They're training new employees on the substitute for people, and I see it every day. And we have to give appreciation to them and all service workers in the profession. But mail workers, we are only allowed to gift them once a year, and their work is countless, because they have to ensure that the mail is delivered in the timely manner, or as timely as can be. And we count on them a lot more for things than we did pre-COVID, when we had newspaper carriers and other sort of people. I mean, other than DoorDash drivers and such, but they're tipped, and we would have had to tip the carriers and such. But unfortunately, that comes to pass. And it really puts an eye on things, that why I get easily frustrated when the mail is not there on time. But then I also understand the fact that the mail is late. Things happen. And in fact, I had a couple packages yesterday, and things do happen. There was a challenge, that my mother said, are you going to go to that mailbox, or are you going to wait to go to that mailbox? And I did wait to go to that mailbox, because I knew yesterday was big newspaper day. I get 3 newspapers on Thursdays. So, there's definitely a lot of newspapers, and there's a lot of other things too. So it really, it makes it easier to divide the routine up a little bit. And the same with everything else that I do. I'm trying better to divide and conquer. So, like, to divide the routine up a little bit more, so that I can keep engaged, but at a lesser volume throughout the day. It's the less is more approach, while keeping engaged. And I think I had to establish that. Yes, I need to keep engaged, but yes, I need to not be so intense, not make it so volumific and so intensely loaded, to the point where I'm become easily overwhelmed. And it seems to be working. I've been trying it the last month or so, and that seems to be working well. What was another reason for that was because I began to stray away from Twitter a little bit more. And I still post things there occasionally, but not as much. And as such, it became a necessity to make a daily digest of the autism news, instead of just overspreading it too much. So, I think, having those daily digests, that gives me something to do in the evening to keep engaged. And it's easy and it's quick. So it's a possibility, and it does happen. So, it's just a part of life. And, it makes things really easy. But, it's the less is more approach, but yet keeping engaged. I think sometimes we don't realize, that helps in the intensity, but we don't realize, I don't think a lot of people know how much doing something as an autistic person is more intense and more bearing than something for a neurotypical person. And how something like going to work, and and how many are expected to work full-time jobs, or at least full shifts, the same as their neurotypical peers, because they pretty much, they present themselves as not having a disability, but indeed they may hide it or deny it. And there's some conflict among the community as to whether disability would be a thing with autism. But I personally feel it is, because there are protections that are needed, and as such, I advocate for them, because you don't know until you're in that situation, whether or not the disability is valid. And I don't like to play the disability card. I try not to. I try to do as much as I humanly can and is able, but there are times I definitely need to use it, because I just can't. Things become too overwhelming, or I may need an accommodation, and that's challenging. We could talk about accommodations too, but to the point, like I didn't ask for them in community college, but my grades were bare. Was a struggle to get through, but I did it because I just wanted to do it, and thankfully I said by the grace of the saving higher power, I did. I don't know how I did it, but I did, and thankfully, nothing came bad, and I actually was an honor student. So, it's a miracle what you can do, as an autistic person, when you allow yourself to do things like that. So, it's just, but in essence, why, when the world is just not built for us as autistic people, and as such, the intensity of things in life, just like that ambulance I hear behind me now, even though that may come through in this condenser, that is pretty much what it feels like a lot of times for me if I do not have a headset on or something. And I think that's something that I had to recognize too, is things are just so much more heightened for me. The sounds, the smells, the noises, the taste. It's just more intense as an autistic person, and sometimes people don't realize that. Autistic people sometimes have different kind of varied degrees of things. My hyperness is a lot in the sound. You will catch me a lot of times wearing headphones or something similar, because that is definitely a challenge, and it is a challenge among many. And sometimes, we don't realize, why does a person have to wear the headphones all the time? And that is indeed a struggle for many autistic people, because the environment is just too intense and too loud for them, to the point, it just can't do it. Can't do it. There's times, I can tell you, I know where every piece of headphone is from here to home, and what I carry when I'm not available, when where one is, and where a copy is at all times, because you just don't know how intense that is, and how mind-boggling that is, as you experience, that piercing sound sometimes. I'm a person who can't have my TV too loud, can't have any. It's very challenging. It's like 10 times worse what a neurotypical experience is, but it's just my neurotypical person experiences, but it's just 10 times as worse. And it could be a variation of things. It could be smells, it could be sound, but my taste, that's why there's such a barrier with food sometimes, and acquiring taste. And I had that as a child, but more and so mine's now pretty much the sound, and how that relates. But with why we have accommodations for our sensory needs. And as I'm going through and updating my website, as time goes on, because I am updating my website, and I'll prove it in the closing, and the out before the outro. But as I'm going through and updating these web pages of these venues, of stadiums and airports, I'm learning more and more that there's a lot of sensory inclusion and invisible disability awareness that we didn't have 20 years ago, or 23 or 25 years ago when I was diagnosed. The world has just increasingly gotten more aware of autism, and we can't thank enough to the pioneers who have done the research and put forth all the effort to make sure that that is followed through, and we are able, as to learn more and more about autism. And I just read an article today on relationships, and how two autistic people in a relationship, how that some people don't think relationships are a thing. And in fact, I can tell you, there's times I feel love, there's times I don't feel love. But when you feel that love and attraction, it's just something really intense. So it's all in how you take it. And sometimes the intensity of something, of anything, whether it be a sensory or non-sensory, or just an item or an interest, it's all, it just all intensifies. And that's what makes autism, basically. It's the intensity and the interest, and the deep threaded interest, or a sensory issue into something. So with that being said, I want to thank you for listening today. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you haven't followed me already, please follow me on my social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest at Dustin's Dynasty. I'm on the web at dustinsdynastyusa.com, and I'm on YouTube and TikTok. There's a mirror channel off of the TikTok. So that is the TikTok handle is at Dustin's Dynasty ASD, and there's a similar YouTube channel. So I invite you to check those out, and be sure to have a good weekend, and we'll talk at you soon. Bye for now.